at Kensington Palace called some of those social media comments madness. The palace was, and William and Kate personally were kind of upset by it. And I was told that the princess herself was upset by it. So I'm sure that played into it, that they knew at some point they wanted to be more open.
We're getting a sense of some of the decisions taken behind the scenes that led to the Princess of Wales's video about her cancer diagnosis and treatment. The King's own cancer and the timing of school holidays were part of the calculation. We're joined by Kate Mansey, Times assistant editor, who writes about the royal family. Has been our guide over this story for the last couple of weeks. Morning to you, Kate.
Morning.
So what are you learning about why this was timed the way it was and how it relates to I suppose, the speculation that was going on as well?
Yes, I think the timing is really interesting. So we were told that obviously she put the children first, and it was all very much timed that this 6 p.m. on Friday video would be 2 hours after the children had broken up for their Easter holidays. But what's all coming out now is the kind of decision making around it, so that it's understood that she had it in her mind for 2 weeks before that even, and then filmed it on the Wednesday, and she went to see the King on the Thursday. But interestingly, what I've been told is that it was the King's diagnosis announcement that really provided that template. And that went quite smoothly. If you remember, he revealed that he had cancer on February the 6th, quite some time ago. But what I hadn't appreciated until the weekend was that courtiers were really quite worried about that announcement at the time, because they didn't actually say what type of cancer the King
I
had.
remember, yeah.
And they were really worried that that would actually spark speculation, further questions, and lots of criticism actually of the palace, which didn't follow. And so, heartened by that, the princess was enabled her really to release something similar by saying that cancer had been found in post-operative tests, that she was undergoing preventative chemotherapy, but has declined to comment further on the sort of precise nature of it.
But how much was that? Because the context of this story is this fevered speculation, the conspiracy theories, the way people have been talking about the family and Kate particularly on social media. Do you get the sense that someone's reading that and telling her about it, that she's reading it, that in the end this was announced because in order to put to bed some of the insane speculation that took place? How did the two relate in that respect?
Well, certainly, I'm very much aware that Kate and William were aware of what was going on online. They've got their phones. William gets the push notifications for all the kind of news that breaks.
Really?
And I was told that they were pretty devastated by some of the kind of wild conspiracies. Kensington Palace called some of those social media comments madness. The palace was, and William and Kate personally were kind of upset by it. And I was told that the princess herself was upset by it. So I'm sure that played into it, that they knew at some point they wanted to be more open. They decided to keep it to themselves. As she explains herself, doesn't she, in the video, that she needed time to come to terms with it. It was a huge shock being told that cancer had been found, and then she needed time to figure out how to tell the children. But I'm sure that she even kind of addresses that. She addresses that kind of time lapse in the video, and I think purposely, to say, look, I get it that we weren't saying, but this is the reason why. And I'm sure that played into it. And this is their attempt, I think, just to put it to bed now. And I do think it's been largely successful.
Well, I was going to ask you that. Has it settled down now?
I think it has, that they've prepared for their Easter holidays. I think people get it. And I think that kind of doing it personally in that way, I think is, it's described by one of the columnists in the Times today as a plea bargain.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting, isn't it? That she's done that video. Look, here I am. I'm telling you personally. It was obviously heartfelt. I was told that she recorded it in one take on the Wednesday. She'd obviously practiced what she was going to say, and she had the script, and she'd run it past people. But when she actually sat down to do it, it just took one take, and BBC Studios came in. It was all top secret, of course. And then the Thursday she went to speak to the King, who knew that this was her plan.
And just your reflections finally, Kate, on, because you report on this. I look at the most clicked stories on the Times every week, and it's in the top 10, 7 of them are royal stories, and so you write about this story. There's a legitimate interest in this story, but also by us covering it, by you covering it, you magnify the story, so you're part of the media attention on someone's private life, as well as also trying to explain that media attention and other attention. How have you reflected on covering the story over the last week?
That's a really good question, Stig. And I think, there've been lots of conversations within the Times newsroom, and particularly when those conspiracy theories were doing the rounds and they went onto mainstream media. So the BBC, was writing stories about the conspiracy theories, and, New York Times and lots of other publications. There were lots of occasions when we said, should we be writing a story about the conspiracies? And obviously it did become part of the story, and we're talking about it now, of course. But there are lots of moments when we said, no, let's hold back. When the picture debacle broke, if you remember, on the Sunday night, there were lots of conversations that we had that evening about how much to make of it, given that she was ill. And in the end, I think our coverage has been really straightforward, really sensible, and kind of sober, and that we've reported on something that's obviously of interest to the public and in the public interest. But there have been so many conversations behind the scenes that perhaps the readers and the listeners don't hear. We don't reveal.
But I think it's interesting because also it strikes me that people have a deep ambivalence in this area, in that they may feel very strongly from a moral point of view about the dangers of intruding, and yet still click on a story. And so that ambivalence is just there in consumption as well as the media.
And I think that's where some aspects of the media go down the wrong path, and they search for the clicks, rather than, and it's weighing up the huge interest that obviously is there with, how much of it, we really need to be sharing. Obviously she's one of the senior members of the royal family, and it is a matter for the public to know when they're, a member of the royal family has such a serious debilitating illness or recovery procedure that requires them to stay away from their public duties. And that could be seen just before that video was released, actually on Friday, that the Prime Minister was involved. The Prime Minister was informed that this was going to happen, and that Downing Street have been informed the whole way along. So the same with the King's cancer diagnosis. And so that tells you the level at which this information is, associated with government and with the public.